does personal development play in inclusion? And I have to acknowledge a few different influences for choosing today's topic. Most of all, Brendan Roach, who I met last sort of summertime. Well, say met, we met before that, but he was on the Daily Sib last summer when you may remember I did literally a live stream, much like I am now, but where I interviewed a different guest every day. And it was for about 4 months, and I had to eventually stop because the logistics behind the scenes of finding the right guests and getting it all set up and people used to the tech. I use a thing called StreamYard. And obviously just coming up with the questions, all that kind of stuff was not a long-term sustainable format, but it was phenomenal to meet many, many amazing people, including having a bit more of a chat with Brendan than we'd previously done. And at the time, he was working at the Business Disability Forum, the BDF. And as he was saying to me more recently, they're sort of more focusing on around the sort of processes and the structure and the management side of businesses in terms of driving inclusion for disabled people. And that would then obviously touch upon employment or communications and all the different parts of a business. But there's that very much that kind of, structural, procedural, managerial side. And also Valuable 500. And the point I'm making here is it really, really helped me understand some of these big names and big businesses that we've heard of, like the BDF, like the Valuable 500, like Purple Space, and maybe a bit more clarity on the different value propositions that they have. So I was just going to say that Valuable 500 is very much about board level and C-suite commitment to disability and inclusion. So again, you can see where there's going to be, when I say overlap, I don't mean it in any negative way, but there's points where they'll obviously touch in similar areas. But BDF is what we just said before. Valuable 500 is that C-suite board. And then Purple Space, which is the infamous, legendary Kate Nash, a real powerhouse for inclusion, very much around what sometimes are called employee resource groups in America, or disability staff networks, as we know them a little bit more in the UK. And all of this is to say that Brendan moved from BDF to Purple Space quite recently. He's just settling into a new role at Purple Space. And so it was just the big thing that I've just said to you was massive clarity on those three big hitters and the different value propositions that they bring. But in our catch up last week, and as I say, Brendan's settling into a new role and starting to build out the strategy, with obviously Kate and the rest of the team around Purple Space. We touched upon both of our love and passion for personal development. So we're now at the core of today's question. And, I've always had a big love of it. I've always read sort of biographies of, entrepreneurs and politicians and civil rights leaders and change makers. So although that may not be directly called personal development, I think there's something in almost, I didn't see it as studying, I just enjoyed reading, but kind of studying those change makers, it actually does give you lots of tips on, how to personally develop and personally grow yourself to whatever sort of objective or aim you have as an individual. And then I've often said about in 2016, roughly, I definitely was experiencing a bit of burnout with work and definitely felt a bit less sort of on the health side, and found Mindvalley, which has been a really, really positive, rich source of different types of education and personal development, from diet to exercise, which even for me, with being in a wheelchair and having very limited physical ability, I think it opened up my mind that, yes, I'm not going to go down the gym and get a six pack and get ripped, but, it's still important that I look after my body and stay as fit and healthy as is possible. But there's also lots and lots of, you can see Sunny going out the door behind me with his clip-clop paws as well on the wooden floor. Just thought you might want to see Sunny there. I could see him in the corner. So then there was the personal development on the career side. And I definitely have noted that from a period of feeling a bit burned out, still had lots of achievements and successes prior to 2016 with the blogging, with the media work, with the travels, all the things I did prior were all very positive experiences and successful to many people's measurement, if you like. But I also was like, well, it's not that great or successful if I'm feeling unwell and sort of struggling things day to day. So yeah, since 2016, when I've then looked at the diet, I also looked at the kind of news that I consume, to try and the way I would care more about what I put in my body. I also care what I put in my mind. As I mentioned a few episodes ago, I did a little bit of therapy last sort of September, October, November, and people were like, oh my God, like, why did you have therapy? What happened? What, worry. And I'm just like, well, no, it's the way that we should look after our body with exercise in the gym. As I was saying before, I believe we should look after our mental and emotional state. And so, yeah, I think just on a really personal story, experiential level here, just sharing it, one to me as one and you to the many watching me today, that, yeah, like, it's just been very, very important to me as an individual. And so I've put, what role does personal development play in inclusion? I just want to first off really, really, really iterate that forget disability, forget inclusion. I just feel that personal development is so, so vital to that everyday health and happiness and well-being. And then it often results quite consequentially in, better relationships, better leisure pursuits, better business pursuits. It's almost like I've always seen that when I look after me, and then I also know I think another a clarification or a caveat is that it doesn't mean to then get selfish and self-centered. So my vision and my general goals in life are still very much about contributing to society, adding value, all that sort of serving others. But if you've not, I think I was chatting, this was the other inspiration, that someone called Rich Mullins interviewed me earlier for his podcast. And this was where it kind of drew a bit more out of the personal development. So at the end of the day, Brendan and Rich were these two big influences of why I wanted to choose this particular topic today. And thanks to both of them for the really interesting chats we had the last few days and inspiring me to talk about this today. I have a feeling there might be some other elements of personal development that I'll go in more deep on a separate episode, because this is a bit of a chunky one. So yeah, obviously Brendan and Rich, thanks for the inspiration. And yeah, chatting to Rich, he used the metaphor that the sort of oxygen safety mask, when you're on a plane, and to kind of put your own oxygen mask on before others. And that was just the perfect way of articulating what I was just saying before, which is that, yes, there's that sort of general worldly goodness that we want to, create that positive impact in people's lives in a really good way. But actually, if we're not looking after ourselves first, you can't do that. And so in the end, it's a balance. But I'd even argue the more personal development I did, the more I understood the value of helping others and having that bigger picture, sort of positive social change, world impact kind of level. So even then, it's not like one or the other, like you're looking after yourself or you're looking after others. No. The more you look after your well-being, and you put, like, you study and you put good stuff into your mind, then the more actually you realize you want to help and make an impact in other worlds. So quite a few things to navigate on today's episode. But as I say, I love to acknowledge the people that have inspired me. So Brendan, Rich, big, huge thanks. The big takeaway, to summarize this, is that for me, personal development is vital for general health and well-being, but it's actually been one of the keys to me being able to have success in business and different life pursuits. I would say that kind of when I left Scope 2011 to 2016, I did lots of cool stuff, as we briefly mentioned earlier, but through just kind of youthful naivety and guster and just bluster and just pulverize through everything and just make it happen. And that was really what needed to happen at that stage in my life, but it wasn't sustainable. And so from 2016 to now, personal development has also been the way that I can keep doing these amazing things day in and day out, but also know that I can do it for the long term and it's sustainable around energy and health and financial and all that kind of stuff. There's another point firing off in my mind around financial abundance. I think I always, as a disabled person, particularly from that perspective of having a disability, I would say that I've always felt like money was difficult. There was always this narrative about, more unemployment with disabled people, poverty with disabled people. And of course, for many disabled people, that's unfortunately still true. And that's a big part of my life's mission, to create, businesses or general projects that address those social problems that many disabled people face. But it was almost a vicious cycle that I felt that was the only way that I could be, was this sort of scarcity and this limitation, and personal development's really, really helped me to overcome that sort of abundance block, if you like. And I think that's definitely one for another day. I'd happily share some of those more in-depth thoughts about financial abundance and some of the ways that personal development has helped me to unblock them. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot here. And I think even on the diet, the exercise is probably things I'll do on another episode just specifically on those types of things. But when we really, really bring this home in this episode today around inclusion, I think for me, it's helped me to do all that I've done that I know has an impact on a more inclusive world. But I just took 2 more points before I wrap, is I think for disabled people, personal development is massive, to be able to sort of break through these barriers and these glass ceilings, and almost having the confidence and the skills and the knowledge, and just generally, I was going to use a slightly graphic, but the confidence to make the world, to change the world and make the world more inclusive. I think personal development plays a really, really big role there. And that's where Brendan was saying that some of the things Purple Space may well be looking at is around helping those disabled staff networks to have that personal development, mentoring, support to drive change within a business. And that's just so cool and so powerful. But also I would add that this isn't just the case for disabled people. It's also something around non-disabled people, whether they're in government or in business or in charities or just in everyday parts of life, that personal development will help them to understand that an inclusive world is a better world. And I talked about abundance and scarcity. And I think sometimes when we see the isms, the sexism, the racism, the disableism, it's often coming from a place of threat, that if you let people more included and participating in the world, it's zero sum and it's going to take something away from that other group, which is rubbish. There's so much, if you look up purely at money, so much money in the world. There's plenty for everyone to have enough to, have a good job and have the finer things in life. And then we start to talk about distribution and inequality of wealth and finance, which is definitely one for another day. But in terms of like empowering non-disabled people being empowered through personal development to understand that inclusion benefits everyone, that's for me another part where personal development plays a role in inclusion. So big ones today. It's Monday, rested from the weekend, fired up with energy and new ideas. So it was good to blow this one out the park today. As I've said a few times, hoping to come live every day this week, maybe a couple of days a bit more difficult. But I certainly couldn't have thrown some of these ones out on a Friday. We'll keep Fridays for something less full on and less meaty. And as I said, there's definitely some stuff I've shared today that would be exciting to unpack and unpick in a little bit more targeted detail as well. But that was definitely a whole thought process on personal development and inclusion. And I hope you found it interesting and maybe even valuable and useful for your personal situations, whatever that may be, at work or out of work. One comment today just from Trish saying, hello Martin, stay safe. So back at you there, Trish. And I appreciate I've gone live after 2. So most people, particularly on LinkedIn, where I get, actually it's about 50-50 between Facebook and LinkedIn actually, But yeah, where most of those live comments normally come from, obviously people are off their lunch break and back at the grindstone, or most people at least are back on the grindstone. So yeah, I hope that you get to watch this later and it's of interest, and I'll be back again, all being well, tomorrow for another episode. All right, take care. Bye-bye.